Welcome back. In our earlier video, we learned how to solve one-step equations using addition and subtraction. In this video, we will learn how to solve one-step equations using multiplication and division. Our first problem, negative 5t equals 60. To get the variable by itself, which number needs to be moved? So we're looking at our variable of t, and what number is beside our t? Negative 5. To move the negative 5, you have to do the opposite operation. What operation will we use? Now, from looking at our first video, a lot of you will say that we have to add 5 to both sides. Well, when we're adding and subtracting one-step equations, that would work. If this was negative 5 plus t, that would work. But we're not working with the same type of problem. We're working with a one-step equation that will require our multiplication and division skills. Now looking at negative 5t. Negative 5t is a multiplication operation. Negative 5t is the same as saying negative 5 times t. Knowing that when a regular number and a variable are side by side, that is a multiplication operation. That's the only way these two numbers can combine together or end up beside each other. So now knowing that negative 5t is a multiplication operation, what's the opposite of multiplication? Division. Let's go farther. So let's solve our problem now. Negative 5t equals 60. Our first step always remains the same. Draw that line to separate the equation into two sides. Now, knowing that negative 5t is multiplication, we have to do the opposite. The opposite of multiplication is division. And we're dividing both sides by negative 5. Why negative 5? Because that is our number beside t. That is the number we're trying to get rid of to get our variable by itself. So we divide both sides by negative 5. Negative 5 cancel each other out on your left side. So your t will come down. Then 60 divided by negative 5 gives us negative 12. Well, don't forget, we have to check our answer. Even if this seems like a simple problem, we have to check our answer to make sure our calculations are correct. So we plug our negative 12 back into the equation, and we get 60. So our equation does work. Please, just like I noted in the first video, if I go too fast, pause the video, rewind the video, watch the video as many times as you need. That is what they are made for. Let's look at our next problem. We have 15 equals 6n. Like we noted in our first problem, when a number is beside a variable, it has to be a multiplication operation. 6n is the same as saying 6 times n. So let's make sure we keep that in our minds as we're solving it. Our first step is to draw a river and separate the sides. Our next step is to do the opposite. Well, the opposite of what? We have 6 times n. The opposite of multiplication is division. And what are we dividing? We're dividing 6 on both sides. Why are we dividing 6 on both sides? Because that's the number beside the variable. That's the number we have to get rid of to get our n by itself. So we divide 6 on both sides. Our n comes down. And 15 divided by 6 leaves us with 2.5. I know some students may get an improper fraction because you may try to simplify knowing that these two numbers have a common factor of 3. But when you have to plug it back in to check your answer, an improper fraction is a lot more work to plug back in as opposed to a decimal. So we try to keep them as decimals. So we plug it back in to check our answer. 6 times 2.5 does equal 15. This works. Moving on. We are looking at a problem with a fraction in it. X over 4 equals negative 12. Our basic math operations tell us that a fraction is a division problem. It's another way to divide numbers. So we're re-looking at this problem as x divided by 4 equals negative 12. We don't like fractions. Most students don't like fractions. So let's get rid of these fractions. Well, how are we going to get rid of these fractions? By doing the opposite. We have to clear the fraction. To clear the fraction, we have to multiply both sides of the equation by the denominator, by this 4. Now, what did we just say? X over 4 is a division problem. And how do we clear the fraction or undo it? By multiplying. The opposite of division is multiplication. So let's now look at the problem to solve it. X over 4 equals negative 12. We draw our river. Next, we do the opposite of our division. Why are we multiplying both sides by 4? Because 4 is the number we're trying to get rid of to get x, or the variable, by itself. As we multiply both sides by 4, we look to the left side. These 4's cancel out. So you'll bring your x down. Now you're doing some basic math. Negative 12 times 4 brings us to negative 48. Don't forget, we have to check our answer. We plug negative 48 back into the equation. Negative 48 divided by 4 does give us negative 12. So the equation works.